This is Leisha Holmes, and I'm your host on the Recruiters Recruitment podcast, brought to you by Hoxo Media. And for any of my fellow cohort from the 2020 Personal Branding Academy with Hoxo, this will be a very familiar face and voice to you. This is a wonderful person that I want to share with my audience, and this is Lindsay Hartland, who is the owner of Hanison Green, and we both got to know each other very well over a 3-month period. And thank you for joining us today, Lindsay. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I am great, and I'm really excited to introduce you to our audience. And I think it's a topic that a lot of people will sit up and really pay attention to, because we're going to talk today about your market. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about how Hanison Green came about. Let's put some context around it.
Okay, well, Hanison Green is actually 6 months old this week.
Congratulations.
6 months and what day is it? Thursday. 3 days. 6 months and 3 days old. So we were established early September last year. Prior to that, I'd been in the corporate world. I worked for S3 for around about 18 years.
Gosh.
And then right in the middle of the pandemic, I decided to set up my own recruitment business, as you do. And a lot of thought went into that, obviously, and the name, you and I have spoken about this previously, how the name came about, but it was quite a relatively easy decision in the end in terms of how we set the business up, the demographic, the geography, the level of recruitment we were going to go after. And yeah, it's been a really good first 6 months, I must say.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. And obviously setting up a business in a pandemic is not for the faint-hearted, that's for sure. So just give us an idea of, what does Hanison Green actually do? What's your market?
So our market is MedTech, and it's a very specific part of MedTech called Neuromodulation.
Okay.
We are servicing primarily, it's not exclusively, but primarily the US market.
Okay. Nicely done there, Lindsay. So what we're talking about today is what is highly regarded and, relatively speaking, the holy grail for recruitment, which is the United States. Why is that? Why is it seen as this holy grail right now?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a big spotlight on the US at the moment. The US has always been there. We've always been able to hire into the US as UK recruitment companies. But I think I've seen it since I set my business up. There's an incredible amount of excitement about making that transition from being a recruiter based in the UK to moving across the water, not physically, but servicing it from the UK. In reality, it's incredibly straightforward. It's incredibly straightforward. And I actually think COVID has actually made it even more straightforward, because we're living in this virtual world now.
Yep, yeah.
Where we don't need face-to-face interactions. The way that you and I are interacting now is the absolute norm. And you and I have commented and written quite a lot of posts on this on LinkedIn. It's not going to go away. This is the way that we're doing business now. So whether they're across the Atlantic or whether they're 50 miles down the road, it's kind of irrelevant now. It's, are you offering a relevant service to a part of the market that needs it? And it's as simple as that.
And it doesn't matter. And like you say, there couldn't be a better time to think about that. If your market and your sector is applicable to the American market, then that's what you should be thinking about. So what is the opportunity? I mean, is it sector specific, do you think? Are there certain recruiters that, because our audience is recruiters effectively, and that's aspiring leaders of businesses. Why should you be thinking about America in terms of your market? What particular areas do you think it would apply to?
Well, I think before we get into the market stuff, if you talk about it holistically, this is where what I'll say to you now. You'll listen to that and you'll think it's just a no-brainer to work the US. So our tiny little country here has got 40,000 recruiters operating in it.
Okay.
Got a population of about 60 million, right?
Yep.
In the US, there's about 20,000 recruiters.
Gosh.
And they've got a population of about 320 million.
Oh, wow.
So that kind of puts it into context here.
Yes.
And part of the reasoning for my decision, really, I've been recruiting in the UK for so long now. It's very difficult to be a recruiter in the UK. It's a challenging job anyway, but I think we've reached the point now where I don't think it's got much respect in the UK.
Why do you think that?
It's just so saturated. It's incredibly saturated to the point Anybody can open a recruitment business, right? It's not regulated. You don't need any recruitment experience. You don't need a track record in recruitment. You don't need to be operating at a certain level, or, like I said, have that track record. You could have no recruitment experience whatsoever, set up a recruitment company, nice flash website, create the impression that you've got loads of experience and you're going to give a wonderful service. More often than not, that's not the case. And to the point where clients across the UK, they're just getting bombarded by recruiters, day in, day out, to the point where I think most candidates or clients in the UK have experienced a pretty bad service from a recruiter. And then you try and build a relationship with that person. And, I've got 18 years experience. I'm not saying I'm the best recruiter in the world, but I think that deserves a little bit of respect.
It does, but you're right. To make yourself
you don't get it.
No. And the perception is that, I think our starting point, the benchmark is actually really pretty low, isn't it? So is the perception different in the States then? Is it regarded as a more professional sector?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've chosen to go in a space where the clients that I'm contacting and trying to build a relationship with are startup companies. I'm specifically working a niche part of MedTech, and a very particular client base. So it'll be startups, pre-commercial.
Just hang on 1 second.
Sort of client that I'm going after is in the startup world. So they're either pre-commercial, probably about anything from up to 2 years pre-commercial to probably having a handful of products in the market, but they're on a fast growth trajectory.
Yeah.
So I get to deal with the CEOs. So part of it is the companies that you choose to go after, because I could go after big medtech companies and I'd probably have to deal with an internal recruiter, same
on
as the
PSL,
UK.
Yeah.
There's no PSL, no influence. You don't really get the opportunity to do your job, and maybe that's where you get a lack of respect, because you might have a 23 or 24-year-old that in this country would often be a failed recruiter or an ex-recruiter that's gone to the other side of the table for maybe an easier gig. And they're potentially a little bit bitter, and they just don't give you that level of respect. So I get to deal with CEOs. I get to deal with founders, CEOs of businesses that the buck stops with them, and they will give you the respect that you warrant, I would say, is the best word. You need to, the thing with operating in America, it's like anything. It's no different to over here in some sense, but they will demand that you know what you're talking about. And they will.
Well, you're an expert in your space, and but the thing is, everything that you're saying should be how we operate over here, actually. And I think that's the caveat, isn't it? That we're talking very specifically about America today, but just pause and think about how you operate now. You should be that person of influence. That's what recruitment should be about. So I think it's indicative that the fact that America regards our profession as a professional services sector, whereas in the UK, recruitment, even though it's multi-billion-pound sector, creating, how many millions of jobs a year, we're still not regarded in that way. So it's interesting, isn't it? We almost need to come back to that one day. So in terms of the the opportunity, then, if people are considering this, and we as Rectorec, I think I said to you off camera, we get a lot of our clients either already starting to launch or thinking about launching into America. What would your sort of words of maybe caution be, or what would your advice be in terms of things like how you invoice, what's the tax implications in terms of how can you place people, sponsorship of people that you place? I mean, there's so many intricacies, I guess. What do people need to know?
Well, I think first and foremost, you need to be, and I'll give a bit of feedback on my experience, because I didn't do this, so I'm gonna be a bit of a hypocrite here. But I'd say be really clear on what your niche part of the market is.
Okay.
Because it's so vast. Each state is about the size of our country. It's massive, and they're all governed by their own laws, which is another thing. You don't need to make so much of a big deal about that, in my opinion. But be clear, because it's vast. Because in my space, MedTech, 40% of the global MedTech market is the US.
Wow.
Massive. So I actually went in there and I was going to tackle it state by state. This was my strategy to begin with. I was going to do the whole of MedTech at a senior level, and I was going to do state by state, get a name in there. So I started with Florida, because it was the second or third largest MedTech population in the US, and it was East Coast, so it's 5-hour difference, slightly better for the lifestyle. And within a week or two, I realised that wasn't the best strategy. You need to have a particular part of the market that you're going to be an expert in. So I cover the whole of the US now, but a very, very niche part within that. And depending on what level you go in, and it needs to be a growth market. Well, it doesn't have to be, but the market that I operate in is a growth market, massive innovation. The technology is just flying. Lots of disruptive technology coming to market. I've put myself in a senior level, VP and C level. That's all I do. But I'm incredibly candidate focused, and this is what I would recommend doing. You've got to be clear on what your tactics are. Okay. And I've chosen to go after the candidates rather than the clients.
Yeah.
Which has always made sense to me throughout my recruitment career. So I'll build relationships with senior candidates that are passive.
Yeah.
They're not active on the market. They've kind of got half an eye on the market. And then at the point I establish trust with them, then I'll just take them to market, very pinpointed, and approach incredibly relevant companies on their behalf.
Yep.
And sell the real value of that candidate. And do you know what? I've been surprised by how easy it's been to get in with some companies.
Don't tell everybody. No, I love that. I love that, because that's exactly how we position ourselves in Rec2Rec. We've always been reverse search. We say we get a candidate, we take them to market. Not every recruitment company sees the value in that, but I think that everyone should do that in a talent short market. It's a better experience. It's a better experience for the hiring company, because it means then you've understood what their candidates' drivers are, their experience, their skills, they're moving for the right reasons. They tend to be more exclusive. So your time spent to hire will be much more valuable than putting an advert out there. I've always thought if everybody did that in recruitment, we would be that profession that you're talking about.
Definitely. And here's one of the big selling points if you're going to consider doing perm in the US. So there's an employment kind of law or contractual system called at will in America, which it dates back to I did a bit of research on this. I obviously knew what it was, but I did a bit of research ahead of today to look at the history of it. But it dates back to the 19th century. It's very traditional, very old school, but most states have kind of stuck with it. And it means, so you can picture it, you watch a film and you see these people where they're cardboard boxes, 1 minute they're working for a company and then they're out the door. That applies to most people in America, even C-suite.
Wow.
So it's called at will. So I think there's only one state that doesn't use at will. So what it means is that an employer at will, i.e. in the moment, can terminate anybody's employment without really giving a reason.
Wow. No protection.
No protection. That could be a chief executive, it could be a VP, it could be whatever the case, but it works both ways round. Okay.
So you could walk out, you could resign at will without giving any notice.
100%, yeah. With no consequence whatsoever. Now, in reality, because we're working in a world now where people, there's always been relationships. You'll have a relationship with your boss, or you'll have a relationship with somebody that you want to terminate from your business. At will, it's quite rare that actually happens, as in like that. But it'll be like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. They'll give them just enough time to kind of cover for their role, and then they're gone.
Gosh, are there not tribunals everywhere? Like,
no, it won't stand up in a court of law. It won't even make it to court because it's just accepted.
Gosh, I'm really surprised actually. Well, there you go. That's a massive piece of advice if you're planning on doing this. So where does that leave you with your rebates? Do you have a rebate to make sure that doesn't then apply to your fee?
No, because in reality, because they've been working with this for donkey's years, It's kind of part. It's accepted. It's part of it, but it doesn't mean to say that people are hired and fired quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Gosh.
It doesn't. Somebody could be with the company 10 years and then they decided, you know what, we want to move this company in a different direction. Your face doesn't fit anymore. Off you go.
Well, I really hope we don't follow suit. I have to say, I hope we protect our right. And as much as long, drawn out notice periods are an absolute pain in the bum for any recruiter that has to sort of, position themselves next to their candidate all the way through, I think I'd rather that scenario than the at will. And what about things like invoicing? Do we need to have a UK company here to invoice, or can we invoice from UK to America?
Really straightforward. So you just invoice as you normally would, but if you're VAT registered, you don't need to apply VAT.
Okay.
There's different scenarios, but if you filled a job in America from the UK,
yep,
and you relocated somebody from the UK to fulfill that job in the US, you might have to apply VAT then. I think there's some kind of blurred lines there, but you probably wouldn't do that very often. What you'd probably do is you'd work with a US company, find a US person, marry them together.
Yeah.
So you don't charge VAT in that instance.
Right. Okay.
Some companies will set up for VAT straight away. I chose to do that, but so you don't charge VAT. You need to be aware of there's a W8 situation. There's a form called a W8.
Okay.
Which it verifies to the IRS your country of residence.
Okay.
So and some companies, when you invoice them, will ask for that. They'll ask for a verification that you are actually based in the UK.
Okay.
Otherwise, if you don't provide that, there's a chance they could withhold their local sales tax.
Okay.
But that's really the only risk, but it's just very, very straightforward.
But again, if it's straightforward, then that's amazing advice. So where's next? Where's next for Hanison Green after America? Are you planning to launch? If you're in MedTech, are you looking at places like Israel? Because that's at the forefront of it, isn't it?
Wouldn't say forefront, but it's in, well, if you compare it to America, it's not the forefront. But no, Israel's very, very exciting. There's a huge amount of innovation there. There's lots of investors there. There's lots of incubator startup companies. In fact, what you see is a lot of companies will start up and grow and reach maybe a year or two before commercialization, and then they'll migrate the business to the US.
Yeah, I've seen that happen. I've seen that happen. My sister's based in Tel Aviv, so let's see whether I can help you on that. Well, it's been an absolute joy to have you on today, and I hope that your future is as bright as that beautiful blue wall for anyone that's watching on YouTube. I do actually think Hanison Green could actually have an interior design section, and I'm sure that any of my cohort from would agree. We did a little quiz, little prize giving at the end of our academy, and I think you won the most stylish background, didn't you?
I think I was joint winner. Was it Greg?
It was Greg with the Sydney skyline. So given,
yeah, I'm happy with that.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just beautiful. So definitely that's an ulterior and another revenue stream for you if you decide to give up on recruitment. But thank you so much for joining me today. I knew it'd be good fun. And it's been a pleasure to see you again. You take care.
Take care. Bye, Alicia. Bye.